Hi, my name is Rebecca Chung and I'm the Communications and Training Officer for POPS, and I'm here this morning with Debbie Seddon, POPS Operations Manager. We're just having a bit of a chat about International Women's Day and the topic that they've chosen this year, which is Choose to Challenge. So Debs and I have just been having a conversation, so we thought we'd share a little bit of that with you. So just going to ask Debs, what does Choose to Challenge mean to you?
Choose to challenge to me is not sitting back on your haunches when you hear something or see something that doesn't sit right or well. So yeah, never sit on the fence. If something doesn't feel right, it could be something that somebody said, something that they've done. Let them know. Let them know that it didn't feel great to hear that, and have they considered how that might impact on somebody else's feelings. So that's my understanding of choose to challenge. Think of it from somebody else's perspective and not just your own.
So what would you say to someone, because I know that you're a very confident person, but what would you say to somebody who maybe isn't as confident as yourself? How do they go about framing that? How do they?
Yeah, I do believe it's all about how you communicate. If somebody just says something really flippantly, don't go, oh my God, have you realised what you've just said? It's just, really? Say that again and think about how that might sound to somebody else hearing it from that culture or, with that experience. And would you have said it again in hindsight? It's how you say things, I think, instead of jumping down somebody else's throat and saying that was inappropriate and you should never have said that. Yeah.
That often gets people's backs up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Then the hands come out and on the hips and you're getting all the attitudes. So yeah, it's not worth it. And that doesn't create a conversation. And what you want is a conversation to take place so that both parties can understand each other's points of view, but in a sensible, less judgmental way, I suppose. Yeah.
So have you had a situation in your life where you've had to choose to challenge a situation?
God, Becky, there's been too many to mention in my life. In the main, my challenge, I always had challenges in the workplace, working in a male-dominated environment when I was with a big organisation, but sort of the impact of what happened when my partner went to prison back in 2007, that resonates with me more because that was a personal challenge. Basically, because of the offence that he committed, there was the possibility of a confiscation order. And with a confiscation order can come the possibility of losing a home and all of the assets and everything that you've worked so hard, to build. Luckily, it didn't come to that. But what it left me in was a position of having to claim income support as a lone parent while still trying to help my then partner, now husband, maintain a family business that would keep other people in employment. And because of an accounting procedure that Department for Work and Pensions use, and in my honesty of submitting all of the papers for the business, straight away I was hauled into an investigation for fraud. Not with the police, but with one of their representatives. There was only one phone call that took place ahead of this, an exchange of some paperwork that had been requested for me, and then straight into this interview. So I went in and I was all guns blazing because I just thought that was disproportionate to what was needed. So there I was with my great big lever arch file full of my papers and a stonking letter from the business accountant that says you're treating my client with complete disrespect and disregard. And straight away I sat there and I went, this is unjust. This is unnecessary. I disclosed to you at the very start what I was doing with my partner's business, and the fact that he was in prison. You've come straight at me believing that I've committed fraud because you are being judgmental. You have stigmatized me because of my honesty with you. If I hadn't shared or disclosed that nugget of information, I'm sure we wouldn't be here right now with you with your finger on a recorder. Am I right? And he just went silent. So I said, but it's fine. You have to do your job and I respect that. So here we go. Here's my evidence to support my side of the story, which you have had before, I hasten to add, but here we go again, face to face. Needless to say, the DWP won because of their accounting processes and what can apply for them. And unfortunately, I did end up having to turn to the bank of mum and dad to settle a £600 dispute that they allege they overpaid me. But it is what it is at the end of the day.
How did you feel though in that process of challenging that situation?
I felt empowered through it because they were in agreement in the end with what I was saying. I became good friends with a woman called Linda who worked in the fraud department. So when I eventually ended up working for Pops on the helpline, I was on the phone to Linda a lot saying, can you help with this client? Can you help with that client? I don't want them to fall into the same hole that I did. So let's learn from that. So whilst it was a bad experience and I wasn't happy about it, I learned a lot from it. And I've been able to use that experience to help other individuals. So, yeah, I'm not angry about it. I do believe that his approach will change going forward. And obviously my conversations with Linda have helped her retrain her staff in how they approach things. And the lettering, the wording of the paperwork was just so harsh and so accusational. It didn't need to be that way. But unfortunately, that's government funded agencies, isn't it? And wording isn't thoughtful at the best of times. It's quite crude and clinical.
So, I mean, hearing from your experiences, basically your choice to challenge the situation actually ended up with some positive outcomes for yourself and for future working relationships. And that choice to challenge ultimately, you hope, changed the attitudes of people within that department to your particular circumstances. What do you think the challenges are for families who are in a similar situation to you at the moment, are particularly in light of the COVID pandemic?
Do you know what? It's an absolute travesty, Bex. At the best of times, families were challenged all of the times. They were facing difficult obstacles to get in on a prison visit, and now not having them at all. They find themselves in a situation where judgments are being made about what's best for families without actually having asked the families. So purple visits, the video calls that have come about, great. They help families to connect. They only allowed one every 28 days. And that came with a whole host of parameters around security. You know, you and I couldn't move with my hand flitting up and down as it does without being cut off. When you sat there with your children and one moves in and one moves out of frame, it will shut down. So as a family member on the outside of that call, constantly losing connection and knowing that you've only got 30 minutes and to make every second of that 30 minutes matter and count, that's pressure. So I had a conversation just this week, actually, where there was an assumption that in the new world of working, it might be a 50-50 video call family visits. Well, why? I challenged. Because that's what the families want. Well, what families have you spoken to? Well, we've spoken to the prisoners and they've told us, no, absolutely not. It doesn't start with you asking the prisoner. You can ask the prisoner what they would like, but invariably they probably say, I don't want it to cost my family money on a prison visit. You know, I don't want to put the upheaval on them to have to come and, you know, choose between a kiddie party and a face-to-face visit. But actually, you need to ask the families. They're living their own sentence too. So now we've got round to, let's do a questionnaire and let's ask the families exactly what they want. And from our perspective, we're going to take the lead on a questionnaire for the prisoners as well. So we can hear what the reasons are that the prisoners are giving instead of just making an assumption that this is what people want. So let the data speak for itself. Yeah, so again, some good will come of this.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because actually in that kind of hashtag choose to challenge, we often focus on the word challenge, but what you're saying is actually choose is just as important a word, like giving people a choice, hearing voices is just as important, and is part of that process of challenging. What advice would you give to families who find themselves in a similar situation to you did, in terms of how you challenge the system?
Right, okay. Well, first it comes down to choice. You have a choice to get yourself online and have a look at what organisations exist, because there are organisations that can help. make that choice to make that call, because that call could be the difference in giving you the right guidance, the right support emotionally and practically that you need, and actually help you navigate and make changes to a situation that you feel quite desperate in at the moment. But you're not alone, because the 90,000 prisoners in prison have partners or family members and a support structure that are all each suffering. So make the call. No one will judge you for it, but ask for the help. Yeah. And with us, we will help you make those challenges, as I did through my criminal justice journey.
Debs, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate chatting you to today.
It's just sorry I can't hook you, Becky.
Bye.
One day. See ya. Thank you.